Hi, hope you're having an awesome day. So I'm just going to go over the framework of Daniel's 70th week and how that was repeated 40 years later. It's a little different from what you mostly hear from the world of hearsay, just flooded with false information. And that's why I created a channel, hopefully to speed up the process of purging the false information out. That's the goal of my channel. And hopefully somebody can pick up where I left off after I die or whatever. Um, so anyway, so here you have Daniel's 70th week, and this is from October 3rd, 8026, all the way to October 1st, 8033. All right, it's a long process how I got that. If you go to my video Crucifixion Date, that took 3.5 years from that date that he died outward. Okay, that's how I got those dates. And looking at the day of the week it ends up on, it appears to line up perfectly with everything. So it all makes sense, whether it's the Sabbath or the first day of the week, that kind of thing. So I'm pretty confident I got those dates correct. So anyway, so that 70th week is the already not yet. All right, and that already not yet applied to the Jews who came to Christ. Did not apply to us today. If you watch my video, Already Not Yet video, I actually refer you to another video by Zach Davis. He does a very good job. And so, going over that. So yeah, if you click on this here, detailed timeline, there's part 1, part 2, and part 3. There are 3 different timelines. They're all linked together. So click on part 1, just the actual 70th week of Daniel. And it goes over the 1 day to 1 year ratio. It's the daily calendar here, the triumphal entry, how that all ties in with the Old Testament scriptures, and then the other side of crucifixion. I go over that as well in these verses. So if you want to go to my video, if you go up in the upper right left hand corner, I have a video on that as well. So the 1 day to 1 year ratio. If you click on this, it'll bring it right up to that. So anyway, so what repeats? Again, the framework, the 70th week is repeated 40 years later. So what ends up repeating? I'll just go over that. So you have Christ's 3.5 year ministry. 40 years later is repeated where the Holy Spirit reminds the seal of Israel the things that Jesus said. And Jesus foretold them this in John 14:26. And these are the 1335 days of Daniel 12:12 prophecy. So the first day of the 1335 day was August 15th, 8066. The last day was April 10th, 8070. Those were the 1335 days. It started off with the first day being the festival of Saddlefor. It's basically a festival where they burn wood and they intermarry, whatever. So the Jews who came to Christ did not participate in that. They were the virgins, okay? Where the Jews who denied Christ in the flesh, they would have participated in that. And sure as heck, we find out later when the temple being destroyed, mothers were actually eating their own children, all right? So the first half of the consummating framework of the 70th week, 40 years later, with the 1335 days, refining of fire, all right? So, go back out. Then you had the cross. 40 years later, the day before the 40th anniversary, to the day, to the hour, I'll add, when they fled the temple. Thursday afternoon, so their prayer that the flight would not take place in the winter or on the Sabbath, April 10th, the prayer was answered, even though God told them several hundred years prior to 1335 days when to leave. So anyway, that later that day in the Gregorian calendar, after 6 p.m., which would be the next day in the Hebraic calendar, which is Nisan 14, which is the day of Passover. That was the 40th anniversary of the Lord's Supper. That was considered the first day of the 1260 days that they were in the wilderness. All right. And then go back here. Gospel to the Jews, and then over here, how that repeat, they actually live out the gospel. All right, there's no Gentiles around. There's no Jews not Christ in the flesh. It's only Jewish people who came to Christ. Where were they? I believe they were in Petra. All right, I have other videos to go over that. But that was their days in the wilderness where they're sharing the love of Christ, and it had been pretty awesome. So, in Acts 7, where Stephen is murdered, that's repeated later in a consummating way, where basically God divorces the old covenant of Israel, stones her to death, and it's for the because of this. Okay, it's a foreshadow of. Let me get more specific here. It's a foreshadow of Revelation 16:6. Philip just click on that. So they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. So it started off with Stephen, and it just took off from there. All right, and they filled up the blood, their measure of their guilt. If you go to Matthew 23, towards the end of the chapter, Peter or Jesus had mentioned about filling up the measure of their guilt. Okay, so that is repeated later in a more consummating way. All right. And then Acts 8, the eunuch worships in Jerusalem, and then left Jerusalem. And so that, keep in mind the direction, he's leaving Jerusalem. The same, it's foreshadow of the worshipers leaving Jerusalem. They fled the temple 40 years later. All right. And foreshadow of virgins leaving Jerusalem, April 10th, Revelation 14:4. Let's just click on that. These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are which they which follow the Lamb, whichsoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and to the Lamb. So they are the cream of the crop. All right, they were the ones that obeyed Christ already in. And then on the last day of the 70th week, the gospel goes to the Gentiles on October 1st, 33 AD. The moment the Holy Spirit descended on them was the moment the promise of Abraham to be the father of a nation took off. And so that's in Acts chapter 10. And then 40 years later, on September 23rd, the day the house of Israel left desolate, it's pure Gentile from that point on. So September 22nd, when the judgment of 12 tribes of Israel, I believe, took place. And the day after, so go over here. The day after is where it's pure Gentile from that point forward. Promise made to Abraham to be a father of many nations took off in a worldwide scale from that point forward. There's not a single person alive at that point who was 100% Jew in the flesh. So remember, Jesus said the house be left desolate, so he meant what he said. So and then you have, so more information on that here. Okay, Matthew 19:28. Truly I say to you that you have followed me in the regeneration when the Son of Man was set on his glorious throne. You also sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So those were the 12 apostles that were to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. So I believe that occurred on September 22nd, 1873. All right. So here's a more detailed timeline of it if you want more information. And so in that chapter when it talks about Matthew 19, you who followed me left your houses, left brothers and sisters, they all left and they gathered in Petra. So every single Jew who came to Christ that left along this timeline here. And so, first, the Jews who were in Asia Minor, who came to Christ, they left and they gathered in Petra first. Remember, Jesus said the first be last and the last be first. So they came first. And they were the ones that prepared Petra for the Jews who came to Christ. So when they fled the temple, which is the vertical line here, it was already prepared for them. And then you had the 1260 days. So the first will be last, and the last will be first. So those who came there last, they were the ones that, again, were the cream of the crop. They obeyed Christ already in. They were the first to go for eternity. And then the first people that are first went last. And it's only right because if you understand the logic here, those who fled the temple, they endured all the way to the end. All right, they went through thick and thin. They're the ones that deserve major salute. Right, the Jews who came to Christ here, they fled early on, starting right after Stephen in Acts chapter 7. They went to Asia Minor early on, and so from their perspective, well, hey, we did all the labor, we prepared the place for them, and we're gonna be last. So Matthew 20 goes over that parable. So Matthew 19 and Matthew 20 all flow together. All right, but it's only right because the Jews who were at the temple endured all the way to the end. They obeyed Christ all the way to the end. They were the cream of the crop. So, so that's why they were gone first. So, and then at this point, September 22nd, right here, where they left for eternity. So, alrighty. So, anyway, so hopefully now you can see how the framework repeats itself. The 70th week of Daniel repeats 40 years later. With the 1335-day prophecy being the first half and the 1260-day prophecy being the second half. All right, anyway, well, thank you very much, and I hope you have an awesome day.